Welcome to Shelf Help. Uh, Today we're speaking with Bryn Jones, who's joining us from the Indianapolis area and is the VP of Marketing at Huse Culinary, which is a pretty diverse restaurant and CPG group based out of Indy. Bryn has been in the food and bev and CPG space for quite a while, leading various spirits and restaurants ventures. So definitely excited to dive in. So just first off, for the listeners that aren't as familiar with Huse, Bryn, maybe just kind of just give quick lay of the land just in terms of maybe the origin story. I know the company's been around quite a while, brands under the Huse umbrella and on both the restaurant and the CPG side, and then maybe just a few places that people can get their hands on the CPG products as well. And then we'll start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Huse Culinary started probably, I guess close to about 40 years ago, really, in terms of our origin. So we're a hospitality company at heart. So our flagship brand and flagship restaurant is St. Elmo Steakhouse. So, consistently ranks amongst the top 25 independent restaurants in the U.S., on all the lists of best steakhouses and wherever in XYZ. So we're really kind of that old school, classic, famous steakhouse, but also always looking to innovate and never rest on our laurels, whether that's technology or innovation. So we're fortunate to have that be kind of the spearhead of a lot of the things we do. And that was our first leaning into the CPG side. But staying on restaurants, we've got a few other restaurant brands. We've got Harry and Izzy's, which is kind of pays tribute homage to the former founder or the former owners of St. Elmo was Harry Roth and Isidore Izzy Rosen. So that kind of pays homage to those guys. And Craig our owners really felt like, doing a second St. Elmo kind of cheapened the brand. And so as long as they're in charge, there'll always only be one St. Elmo Steakhouse. Harry and Izzy's, we're up to 3 locations, working on a 4th in Phoenix, Arizona. Up to this point, though, everything's located in Indianapolis. We have 1933 Lounge is another brand of ours. We've got multiple locations of that. We're up to 3 locations of 1933 Lounge. And then the last one is we've got HC Tavern and Kitchen, which is kind of a new age American grill located in Fishers. So we're growing. We're up to 8 restaurants and growing. And on the CPG side, we've got essentially 3 different brands on that side. We've got St. Elmo Steakhouse. And so that's like seasoning, cocktail sauce, things like that. We have a spirit side also under St. Elmo. So that's like, old fashioned and cherry vanilla bourbon is our number 1 bestseller on that side. So that's a product that has just taken off and gone like wildfire. And we've got two other separate brands also on the spirit side. We've got Rare Saint, which is a whiskey brand, some barrel finish stuff, a lot of it barrel strength. We don't do the distillation ourselves. We partner and work directly with some of the top distilling partners in the Midwest. Many of them are mainly in Indiana. One of the largest bourbon producers in the world is based in Indiana, which people don't know, and they're absolutely phenomenal. And so we've got a few partners on that side that we do some contract distilling on, just great partners. And then our last brand that we have is Barkeep Vodka, which is a innovative process on a vodka. The way that vodka is distilled is fairly similar on that as what you'd see with any other top shelf vodka. It's done as high end as you can possibly do, but it's the finishing process is what makes it different. We partnered with a guy who's actually a science-based entrepreneur in Indiana who developed this process. It's been patented and it's really disrupting the spirits industry. But what it does is it puts the product, any spirit, under pressure, and that pressure releases the molecules that create bite, burn, and aftertaste. So I won't try to explain it further than that because he's got like 14 PhDs, I think, and just wicked, crazy smart dude. I was teaching molecular genetics at IU when he was 18, if that validates how smart this guy is. But this process has kind of been a game changer in the spirits world, and we're the first to launch a vodka with it. So super excited about those. So that's kind of a rundown. We're a hospitality company. We're also a CPG brand at our core, and we make great products for people to enjoy, whether it's in our restaurants or in their homes.
Started focusing on the restaurants, obviously had a lot of success there. I'm just curious about that journey that was kind of inside the company in terms of ultimately just coming to that decision or conclusion that it made sense to expand beyond the restaurant world and really put a big focus on the CPG space.
Yeah, I don't know that there was ever a strong focus on we're going to become a big CPG brand. I mean, last year we shipped over 1 million products, well over 1 million products, and we've become a fairly fast growing company in that space. But it was never like I don't know that the intent was ever like that. The intent was simply so many people want our cocktail sauce and they keep asking for it how do we make people happy? We're in the hospitality business, and when people want something, we're in the business of wanting to say yes and giving them the thing that they're asking for. So really, that's kind of where it started. And I'd say, I kind of say it was my side hustle to start. Craig, our CEO and co-owner of St. Elmo with his father, Steve Huse, it was his idea to do it. And the project just kind of fell in my lap. I'd done everything up to that point: business development, sales, marketing, product, P&L management, all of the things that kind of would be helpful to take that project and run. And I've been doing that for the last 12 years. So what started off as a side hustle now is up to, I think we've got about 8 people that pretty much are fully dedicated to that side of the business. And yeah, we continue to grow, and it's expanded to now 3 product lines. So I don't know that it was intentional, like, let's make this big splash and go throw a bunch of money at it. It's just grown naturally and organically based on giving people a product that they really wanted.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Whether you came on board to actually, the goal is to build this out, or you came on board and then at some point decided to make this decision. But it seems like to a certain extent, you've been kind of an entrepreneur to a certain extent, like building this new business within a company that's been around for 40, 50 plus years, as you mentioned. I'm just kind of curious, what's that experience been like?
Yeah, there are. I mean, an entrepreneur, I guess I am that on the spirit side. I was one of 4 founding partners on the spirit side. So I'm somewhat of an entrepreneur on that side in terms of these new products and new brands that we're starting. But I really kind of put myself in the category of being an entrepreneur, which I think a lot of people fit into that role, as somebody who really just takes ownership of a product and of a project. So I would never go, to Craig, who's my boss and partner on the spirit side. But when he was solely my boss, I mean, I'm never going to him going, hey, here's this problem, help me fix it. It was more along the lines of, here's the problem, here's the smarter people than me that helped me fix it and told me what we should do, and have the humility, the hunger to solve a problem and make something better, but the humility to not think you have all the answers. And so I was always coming to him with, hey, here's this new opportunity. This is how I think we should approach it. And, he gave me a pretty long leash. I mean, he's managing a restaurant empire and a retail division with, close to 1,000 employees now. So he doesn't need people that bring him problems. He needs people that bring him solutions and help him solve things. So, and I think that's what an entrepreneur can do. And the benefit to me is I don't have the risk that he has. I don't have the exposure. I don't need the financial capital to launch some of the things that we've been able to do. And so it's a good balance of me providing value and adding value into his organization, and doing it in a way that reduces problems, but also creates opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's a great setup. 8 restaurants is a lot, I would say, in its own right. Now you've got this big business. You're in, I think 2,000-3,000 plus doors at this point. What have you found is the best way to effectively just really split your time between the 2 divisions?
That's tough. I mean, I am ADD hardcore by trade. I think on my health report to violate HIPAA laws, I believe it says chronic is the term it says for my ADD. So my ADHD. I'm always looking for the next thing or the next idea. I mean, we got probably 6 figures worth of free press because somebody stole a 4-foot taxidermy fox out of one of our restaurants that was worth $1,000. And instead of going to IMPD and saying, help us catch the people that stole this, I was like, just give me the video. We're going to post this online. It goes viral, creates a ton of press and a ton of buzz. And, so I think it's trying to identify the greatest opportunity to drive attention to our company and just add value to everything that I do, whether that's my team, brands. So it's a little bit of a hard thing. I mean, the biggest focus of me right now is how do I make sure that the people that I work with have everything that they need. And that's where I spend the most of my time, I think, and where I'm most valuable is making sure that I have the right people in the right place that I work with, and everybody else that we try to support has everything that they need from us. So it's really, we treat ourselves in the marketing department, as I lead that group for both restaurants and CPG. I always tell them, like, we should be treating this like we're an internal ad agency. We support everybody else in their roles. And if we help them win, we're going to win as an organization.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. I think the shrimp cocktail sauce was the first SKU you brought out of the restaurant into retail, and then spices a few years later, followed by the spirits. What was just that journey or kind of thought process around starting with sauces first, then spirits, and then spices, then finally spirits?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult. It was a fun journey, a difficult journey, but it was one where I kind of went like, I guess it's that idea of burn the boats. we're famous for cocktail sauce. If this thing fails, I'm a failure. I mean, I really took it extremely personally and I put way more pressure on myself than anybody else ever did. But it was hard out of the gate because CPG, and I didn't know how hard CPG was when I first got into it. But as a category, it sucks. I mean, it's extremely difficult to launch anything in that category and be profitable. I mean, I think the failure rate I've been told is in the neighborhood of around 95% of new CPG products last 5 years. The failure rate is high. I think restaurants, the 10-year success rate of restaurants is like, I want to say it's a little bit higher than 10%. Make it that long, maybe it's closer to 20%, but the failure rate and the difficulty of both of the industries that I've chosen to go into is both very hard. So it's challenging, but I think it's that mentality of like, this is going to be successful. We're going to keep pushing at this until it is. And simply having that mentality, then it makes it more of a matter of time as opposed to if this is going to be successful. It's like, it's going to work. We just don't know how long it's going to take. Again, surrounding myself and trying to find advocates and people that I'm connected to and that I know or that I can connect to that can help me or help us make, wiser decisions. It was a struggle. I guess to really touch on your question, yes, we launched with cocktail sauce right out of the gate, really strong sales online, but had a hard time getting a foothold into restaurant or into retail. But, that took a year or so. And it was one of those where, everybody at the time, if you're trying to do something like this with it, whether entrepreneur or in my case, intrapreneur, if you go to somebody who hasn't done it, they're probably going to tell you you're crazy. They're going to say you shouldn't do this. Like, I guarantee your business, if you went to your parents or your brother or your friend and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, I have this safe and successful, stable job, they likely said you're crazy, don't do it. I think that comes from one of two places. It either comes from a place of they're trying to help you and they don't want you to fail and they don't want you to see that hardship. That comes from a healthy place. Other people, I think, try to shoot things down and make it not happen because it comes from a place that they've never chased their dream or thing that they wanted. They've never wrote that book or started that new thing. So you really can't talk to people who haven't done it because you're only going to get negativity, whether it's coming from a place of positive or negative. It's still going to be the same message. So you've got to really kind of block out the noise. And we were able to do that. And I was able to do that by somebody saying, hey, you're a restaurant group. What do you know about CPG? You're not going to be successful. And just being able to kind of put blinders on and go, we're going to figure it out. We'll be fine. And, we did that in Indianapolis but it never stops, right? We figured it out in Indy. And then it was like, well, you're an Indy brand, but nobody knows you outside of Indy. Well, then we did it in the rest of the state. And then it was, well, you guys are Indiana, but let's be honest, you can't go anywhere else. And we've just kind of kept pushing those boundaries and kept being successful by figuring out, kind of pattern recognition of what works well for us. Fast forward to today, we're in, close to 30 different states. We were just reading a report the other day where we're kicking ass with HEB all the way in Texas with cocktail sauce and creamy horseradish. So we're getting some wins and we continue to kind of, I think the struggle is finding the right people that you can listen to and blocking out the negativity and just kind of that mentality of going, this is going to be successful. We just don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah. Talking about that formulation product development a bit, pretty sure I read somewhere that you went through like 25 plus batches of the cocktail sauce to really get that heat profile right. You personally tasted like every one, maybe even to the point of getting an ulcer or two. I'm just curious, like without giving away any trade secrets, what were some of those, like, I guess, key variables you were playing around with all those different batches or key tweaks you made between that first version and that final version where you felt like, this is right, this is the one?
Yeah. So the initial group that we worked was actually a local company in Indianapolis, and they're no longer around anymore, unfortunately for them. But them kind of going out of business, is us seeing that coming. The writing was on the wall. We needed to find somebody else and do that fast. And honestly, we got fortunate with the group that we found that we partner with. Full disclosure, I'll tell you who they are. We partner with Silver Spring in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and they're the world's largest purveyor and processor of horseradish. So our cocktail sauce is all horseradish. So that was kind of a good natural fit there. And their team is amazing. We work directly with them. They have R&D scientists. They know all the chemistry. And so on our end, essentially what we're doing is partnering with their experts and leaders to go, here is this product that they've done to our specifications, and then matching that against the restaurant. And then from there, they were going through a process of finding new innovations and really pushing themselves on kind of the limits of their expertise in terms of cocktail sauce and how to keep that heat in there. It's a weird product. If you heat cocktail sauce up, it'll lose all of its spiciness, which is just kind of weird. And so there's different things that they've learned over time of how to retain that heat. And they kind of kept getting even a little bit better and better. So it allowed us to continually improve our product to where it is today. It's really close to, it's never going to be quite the experience that you get in the restaurant. And we understand that. But I mean, that's a product that's made fresh, 2 or 3 times every shift. I mean, that's how fresh it is. So we know it'll never be that, but it's pretty damn close and it's really good. So, but yeah, it's just anybody that's in business knows that it's never about, you can't just stop, right? You're always continually pushing for that next thing. And in that case, we had the North Star. We had this product that we're famous for and gets on, ESPN and NFL and all these things is the thing that everybody loves to talk about already. We just had to go and just keep pushing to get it as close to where it matches the restaurant as possible. And that's where we finally ended up. But it was a struggle to get there.
Yeah, totally. That's great insight. On the spice side of things, how can a brand, how do brands really kind of differentiate themselves in this category? Is it really proprietary blends? Is it, more like proprietary suppliers? You just get, better quality spices than everyone else? Or what does this look like? And kind of how have you guys approached this in terms of trying to create a differentiated product in this category?
Yeah, I mean, to have success on the back end of answering that question, that's a tough question. I feel like this could be an hour-long answer in itself, but I'll try to keep it brief. I think differentiating yourself, something that we always look for, that I always kind of push our teams and we always look for, just based on what I see succeeding in the marketplace at the highest level, is I think there's 3 things that can make you successful on a product launch. In my mind, at least, it's first, best, only. Are you the first one to roll out that product? Is it the best product on the market? Are you the only one with the ability to do something or position it in a certain way? So we were the only ones to say St. Elmo, and we had a ton of brand recognition behind our name. So that helped on that one. We're the only cocktail sauce out there that's as spicy as ours. And because of that, we were also, as defined, the first to do it. So when you have all 3, you've got something that probably has a very high degree of success, that it can be successful if you get the message out there and do things the right way. If you've got 2, you have a really good chance of being successful. If you've got 1, you might have a chance. But if you don't have something, one or 2 out of those 3, first, best, only, I probably wouldn't recommend trying it, because great products die on the shelf every single day. Just because you have an amazing product doesn't mean it's going to be successful. You've also got to get that trial in a marketplace where grocery stores have, 30, 40, 50,000 different SKUs in this store. How are you going to stand out when the average shopper only goes in and buys the 50, 60 things that they always buy? It's a weirdly tough category. So standing out is how many of those 3 things can you get? And then how do you get somebody to hear your story and try the product? If you can figure those things out, you're onto something. First, best, only, and then hear the story, try the product. If you do those 5, you're going to win.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. On the spirit side, in terms of developing these first few spirit SKUs, what's the formulation and kind of R&D process look like, and how much, if at all, did you leverage the bars at the restaurants and kind of test things out?
Yeah, getting into spirits, I will say getting into spirits has been a little bit more fun than the CPG on the cocktail sauce. I mean, going through the formulation and trying 20 different versions of cocktail sauce to get the right flavor, not nearly as fun as when I'm able to do that with vodka or whiskey. So certainly a much more fun project in general, but absolutely the best thing that we have, I mean, the best marketing of any product, restaurant, business in general is great operations, and we have an amazing restaurant operations team. We have all-stars at every level of our organization on that side. So when I'm going in, complete brutal, weird honesty on Barkeep Vodka, the brand that we've launched with recently with our name, that brand Barkeep Vodka. So we never intended to launch Barkeep Vodka as its own product. We took that as a brand extension and created a brand around the vodka that we created because our bartending staff, and again, these are people that have been doing it for 10 or 15 years. They have tried every single vodka ever on the market, like hundreds and thousands of different products over a decade career. And they know what's good and they know what's not. And with this new innovation from a processing and filtering standpoint, they were like, this is the cleanest, smoothest tasting vodka. You almost don't taste vodka when you taste this vodka. And they were like, we need to create a brand around it. Everybody on the ownership side, we were literally going into this going, we're not going to create anything other than this whiskey brand that we're already doing and St. Elmo cocktails. And really the brand came out of our bartenders and service staff going, you need to make this available so we can buy it because it's that good. So that's kind of where that product came from. So yeah, we lean heavily on our team on the operating side. I don't have to taste. I mean, I enjoy whiskey, but I'm not super passionate about the different flavors and mash bills. But I can have somebody on our team try that who's been a whiskey connoisseur and has been tasting it and sampling and trying and just evaluating different whiskeys. And he's been doing it for 35 years, close to 40 years. Right. So we've got the team that will go, that's bullshit. Don't do that. You should absolutely do this. And so, yeah, I mean, our team on the back end is absolutely the kind of the secret sauce that makes everything that we do. If we try to do something and it's not up to an all-star caliber A level, they'll call us on it and it'll get shut down, not by the ownership group or the management team. It'll get shut down by our bartenders. If they don't get behind it, they're not going to serve something that's not of the highest quality.
Yeah. Is it safe to assume, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the cherry vanilla bourbon was like the first spirits product you guys launched. Did that essentially come out of bartenders at your bars that had been already making those and Taste Great got really good feedback and they were the ones that pushed should be like, you guys, if we're thinking about launching a spirits line, this should be the first flavor you launch. We just get amazing feedback on this one.
Yep, that's exactly it. It was so where that product first came out was about I was late 2012, and this is when craft cocktails were really starting to take off, and people wanted something other than a Manhattan or whatever, and the idea of being really creative and coming up with one-off cocktails for different restaurants and brands was really taken off, and we wanted to join that. But instead of doing it with a vodka or a gin, which was commonplace at the time, we're like, let's do something that's bourbon that fits kind of the ambiance and the feel of a classic old school steak joint, which is what St. Elmo is. And so we were like, the idea was kind of to do something around there. And so our lead bartender, the guy who's also our bourbon expert, he's been, sipping and evaluating whiskey for, over 3 decades. Carrie was really kind of the driving force on our end for that product. And essentially what it is it started off as a 4-year aged whiskey. And then it's infused and essentially aged, kind of finished with Luxardo cherries at the time and then natural vanilla paste. So basically we took those flavors and aged that. So it has nice cherry sweetness, a natural sweetness from the cherry. It's a really good bourbon that we start with and kind of the smoothness of a vanilla. And it essentially makes a kind of an adult cherry Coke, if you will. And it became our number 1 selling craft cocktail on that menu. So back to the question of, is that why we started? Was popular? Yeah, it was our number 1 craft cocktail on the menu. And if we're going to do a spirits project, this is probably the one to try. We launched it the first year, and our distributor at the time said, hey, if you do 1,500 cases in year 1, it's going to be a huge success. We were closer to 15,000 cases. Like, it was astronomical, crazy success rate right out of the gate. And then that's given us kind of the ability to take that success and launch a vodka, other St. Elmo cocktails. We've got an old fashioned that does really well, espresso martini, and then, then take that additional success and then put that into, barkeep vodka and rare saint whiskey.
Yeah. As you guys think about, the next batch of SKUs in the spirits line, are you starting to think about specific kind of customer data? Maybe they put a new cocktail on the menu and it's the number 1 selling cocktail for X months in a row or something along those lines? Or is it more just kind of anecdotal? You kind of make a, judgment by judgment basis based on just kind of what the team is feeling in terms of how popular things are in the restaurants and bars?
I think great ideas can come from almost anywhere. They can come from bartenders that we talk with outside of our group. They can come from internally of someone on our team that knows our capabilities and what our production team is capable of. that can be where it originates or starts. But I think in general, a lot of times we're going to go back to our bartending team and our staff, because they're the ones that are working with customers and, our patrons and guests in our restaurants on a daily basis. And so they get the feedback, they know what works, they know what doesn't. But then we're also looking at, how can we bring things out that are, back to that idea, kind of a first best only. One of the projects that we're working on right now, it's not ready yet, but it's essentially going to be a flavor of Barkeep. It's Barkeep Vanilla. Where that came from is, our bartenders kind of challenged us. They were like, can you come up with something better than the vanilla vodka that we're using? It goes in espresso martinis, things like that. So it's a very popular and a very well-used spirit. And our team said, can you make something better than anything that's available? So it was kind of a challenge, and we went, let's give it a shot. We leveraged the technology that I mentioned, where that this local group in Indy essentially puts a product under pressure, and then that pressure kind of removes the bitterness, bite, and burn of a product. And so we did that not only with the Madagascar vanilla, but also with the vodka, and it created this vanilla vodka. And you'll notice most vanilla vodkas that are on the market, they're clear, which they're clear because they're using a vodka flavoring, which is less expensive, also doesn't taste as natural, as clean. Usually you have to put a lot more sugar in it. We've been told by a group that did the analysis on this that our vodka has like 30 to 40% fewer calories than a typical vanilla vodka, but still has all the sweetness that the other ones have, because we don't need that added sugar to mask that bitterness coming from artificial vanilla, right? So essentially it's put top quality, fantastic, great ingredients in a bottle. Try to make something first best only. If you're not improving on something in retail, it's extremely hard space. So if you're not doing something to level up what's being done before you, like, don't even try, because you have zero chance of success at that point. You've got to do all the things right, and you need a few wins and a bit of luck to go along with it. But that product, we're super excited about that. I mean, people are trying that. We weren't even planning on taking it to retail, only for restaurants. And the demand has been so much that we are building a brand, not a brand, but building a label and retail packaging around that, because the demand has been so high. So it's exciting. So, but yeah, I think that a long-winded answer. I think ideas can come from anywhere, but you really got to check all the right boxes if you're going to actually take it to retail, and, lean on people that are subject matter experts. In this case, our bartenders and bar managers.
Yeah. When you're taking a new SKU or a product to retail, and you get to that point, because you have that great benefit of having all those restaurants and all that anecdotal customer feedback, but also data. Is there any type of those data points from the restaurants and bars that you use when you're pitching retailers and showing, hey, look how well this sells in our restaurants and bars, or here's the feedback? Or I'm just curious, are you able to leverage anything on that front when you guys are going into pitching your retailers to try to get the product on the shelf?
That's a great question. Initially, I'm sure we did that. St. Elmo with our cocktail sauce, roughly 2/3 of our guests order a appetizer. The only appetizer on the menu is St. Elmo shrimp cocktail, and it's famous because of that sauce, right? So you have arguably the most famous, single appetizer in an independent restaurant in the US, at least, that has this tremendous following. Sales results, 2 out of 3 guests is crazy for any restaurant in terms of how many people actually order an appetizer. So yes, we used it as a kind of a thing to kind of bolster our argument or prop it up. But ever since then, the spaces are so different that we don't really use restaurant information for retail, and vice versa. We've got a team that's solely dedicated on developing and creating the best restaurant items we possibly can ever create. And we've got a retail team that very frequently is going, all right, this team of 200 plus people in culinary who are constantly looking for innovation and creating this new product, new flavor, new dish, new item. We're going, out of all of those things that all of these massively talented people are creating, what are the best that rise to the top? And then that's what we're taking to retail, and not necessarily using the data to back it up. We just want a shot at, put us on the shelf and let us prove to you that this is going to work. We have the confidence, but a buyer's not going to probably look at restaurant data and really take much credit or stock in that. Now, when we're winning with HEB out in Texas with a cocktail sauce, when somebody's going to say, hey, you guys are a local, regional brand. You'll never survive outside. We can go, hey, we're 4 states away in the South in a market that is vastly different and very far from Indianapolis. And we're winning at a pretty high level. There's no
Yeah.
reason why we can't do that on the East Coast, in the South, down in Florida, so data within an industry will help influence and steer decisions within that same industry. But I don't know that there's a ton of crossover. There is for us in terms of evaluation and product creation, but that data won't necessarily help you, I think, with a specific buyer.
Yeah. I spoke with someone a while ago who runs sales and marketing for a pretty big produce company. I think they're like one of the biggest mushroom growers in the country. And he was talking about how he used the food service channel from their side of things as he called it kind of a brand building flywheel, meaning customers that try the product in a food service environment will then go looking for it at retail and vice versa. Do you guys find that to a certain extent, or are you guys, based on what you're saying, do you see things as pretty separate?
No, I think the retail side wants to support the restaurant side by, innovating and giving them products especially on the spirit side that help them do their jobs better. And then the restaurants are a tremendous advocate to us on cherry vanilla bourbon. That product had been served and raved about and enjoyed on our menus for 10 years before it was ever taken to retail, or close to 10 years. And so there's a huge benefit to getting trial. Again, I guess going back to the idea of first best only, cherry vanilla bourbon was first best only, which is great. But unless you have people that try the product and hear the story, you're never going to be truly successful. You've got to have all of those components. And that was something where we had a ton of trial on it. And the same thing's happening on Barkeep Vodka, Rare Saint. People are seeing the quality that we're putting in that bottle. We don't compromise. We do the hard things. We pay more for ingredients. We're doing everything right to be successful and make sure that anything that we put in a bottle matches the expectation of what we serve in our restaurants. So they know we're not cutting corners. And that helps give a presence and an understanding that we're putting things out there that are, the best quality product we can put in a bottle. And we're more concerned about that than we ever are on price. One of the jokes that I think we say in the restaurant world a little bit on our end is the experience will be remembered long after the price is forgotten. And so when we're doing things on the spirit side is to make sure that we're kind of backing that up. Quality, doing things the right way come first. And all right, now is this a viable product? Does this fit into the marketplace from a cost standpoint? What does the packaging look like? How do we bring this to life? But it has to start with the quality. And if we do that, we know our teams in the restaurants are going to get behind it. And simply by that happening, we know we're going to get trial. We know we're going to get people telling our story about this new vodka, Barkeep, about this new whiskey that we're doing at Rare Saint. They're going to be pushing it because they're excited. And a lot of times they're a part of the origination of that idea.
You're forecasting 1,500 cases of that in that year one. He ended up shipping 15,000. What did you feel like was the key to such explosive growth?
I think the learnings were, it really, if I go back to why it was successful, is it was the most popular craft cocktail on the menu for a decade, over a decade, and that was really a huge driver of that success. Not quite a decade. 2012 I think is when we launched it, and we launched the product in retail in 2019. Right, so you've got about 7 or 8 years of trial on a product before we took it to retail. That's why it crushed, because so many people already knew what it was. So when they saw it on the shelf, they just went, "Oh, I love that in the restaurant. I'm paying $14 for a drink. Yeah, I'm going to pay $30 so I can have 10 drinks at my house." It was a natural transition for that product, and it really was successful. Same thing with our steak seasoning. Our grills, a typical grill guy or gal in our restaurant, that grill chef they're serving literally millions of steaks in their career. And this is the seasoning that they're putting it on every steak. And so we vetted the process. If there was a better seasoning that was going to be more receptive and more positively received by our guests in the last over 100 years, we would have changed it. And we have changed it a few times, definitely over the years, but we've found something that people absolutely love. And it's just taking that thing that's being successful and finding a way to position that into a different space, which is retail.
Yeah. What retailers did you decide to target first in that first year to where you had this explosive growth? Which one did you guys launch with initially?
Yeah, I guess I'd answer that as, and I think this is probably, CPG is a weird space right now with consumer packaged goods, and the food industry is a weird space because you've got so many brands that are pulling back. Innovation is kind of leaning into health space and things like that. People are consuming products differently. I think the large conglomerates that historically have dominated in that industry are, their stock price is getting beaten up because there's a lot of innovation that's kind of taken, their lunch. And so when you start out, I think your best bet is to start in a place where you can win, and you need somebody to share that story. So what I would recommend is start with smaller groups, whether it's mom and pop, butcher shops. If it's a seasoning or product like that, you want to be on the perimeter, because if there's 5,000 different seasoning bottles and you're one of those seasoning bottles, you're probably going to get lost. So, build a relationship with the meat, the meat manager of that store, and find a way to get a rack on the meat counter. Those things were very helpful when we launched our seasoning. But same thing on cocktail sauce. Start small and make sure anybody that you partner with, you bust your ass to add value to what they're doing. And you're not just, cool, we got this sale, let's move on. It is truly a partnership. Our salespeople, we don't typically refer to them as salespeople. I mean, they're partnership managers. They're managing relationships, and they're coming to it with the approach of wanting to add value to anybody that we're fortunate enough for them to lend us some space. And we're going to bust our tail to add value and make sure that we never ask them to do anything that's not in their best interest. And simply that approach, start small, make sure anywhere you go, you win. That's given us the credibility that, when we launched with Costco, we had enough sales that it was just throwing gasoline on the fire, because we had the reputation of doing things the right way and kind of building our brand through just great partners all along the way and making sure they win first and we put our needs second.
Yeah. As you guys expanded the product lines between the sauces, the spices, the spirits, I think you had to pitch and manage multiple different buyers for each category. I know you spoke about this on another podcast, I think, so we can keep this one fairly brief, but just maybe at a high level, what's been your strategy for managing such a complex web of stakeholders?
Yeah, we have probably the dumbest route to market possible in terms of the products that we create. It started with cocktail sauce, and even that in itself, a group might be, tell you, we're going to put you in the dairy department, which is a horrible idea for us. And we fight that wherever we can. We actually tell groups no now, because nobody looks for cocktail sauce in the dairy department. We could have even multiple products on that one product, right? So we might be the meat buyer, we might be the seafood buyer, we might be dairy. We're general grocery on seasoning. We're upwards of 2, possibly 3 or 4 different buyers on our other sauces. Then we get into alcohol, which is a whole separate buyer. I mean, we're dealing with, even within one grocery store, one grocery chain, we might be dealing with 4 or 5 different buyers, which is hard. Typically what you see in retail is somebody develops a relationship with that one specific buyer, and you develop a rapport of how to win, not only with that person and with that brand, but you get recognition for people that shop in that same area and are familiar with your products. We're going, hey, we've got this amazing cocktail sauce. Try our seasoning, totally different products, totally different, potentially consumers. Somebody might love our seasoning, but they don't drink alcohol, or vice versa. So it's a hard way to go about it. It's been the right way for us, because we've always taken the approach that we're not trying to put our name on St. Elmo, yogurt or something. I always joke that I with Craig, I was like, man, why couldn't you have been famous for granola or yogurt, like something that people consume every day? But it's cocktail sauce. When a great customer, you only buy 3 or 4 bottles in a whole year. So, but the reality is we chosen that path deliberately and intentionally, because these are the things that allow us to reduce mistakes and also not cheapen or lessen St. Elmo's brand by trying to put our name on something that we don't have a unique story behind. It's not something that we created. It's not just a good product that we slap our name on. There's a story behind it. There's a reason we do it. And it's something that we've built up some integrity on, making sure that we only launch products that are something that we take pride in. It's something that we created, and we're known for, and our customers want us to create these products for retail. That's been really the way that we've been able to push these products out and be successful on virtually just about everything we've taken out. We've launched, we've been successful on because we've been diligent and stayed true to the fact to only put out items that our customers love, and that way we can reduce the risk and liability of new items.
What are some of just the tools tools you found, you and your team have found to be most impactful just in terms of really driving as much velocity as possible at retail? And these could be things like a really dialed in demo strategy, sampling, maybe it's like shelf talkers, aisle violators, retail media stuff.
I think the most impactful is, like I said earlier, getting people to try the product for the first time. That is the hardest thing to do. Just think about a focus group of one. I've never thought about it in these terms, but knowing what I know about grocery stores, and if you go into a Meijer, there's 50,000 products in that store. I've probably tried a couple hundred. There's so many different items out there. So getting somebody to try something for the first time is incredibly difficult. That's the hardest thing. If you have a great product and people try it, they're probably going to buy it. You win. So getting people to try the product, hear the story, share that with others, that is 100% has to be the main priority of any sales and marketing team that's trying to win in this space. Other things you can do to get that trial, I think is another thing that you want to try to focus on. One of the first email blasts or the first successful marketing tools that we did for the cocktail sauce when we launched, and we've got a pretty robust and large email database from our reservations over the years of the restaurant. So, I pushed an email blast that probably went out to 30 or 40,000 people. And I think maybe at the time we had probably had about 150, 200 cases in inventory. It was our first run, small run. So the email blast I put out, and it was when we first launched it online. The subject line of the email blast said, "Warning from St. Elmo Steakhouse." I knew the word clickbait hadn't even been invented at this time, but it was totally clickbait. Somebody's like, "What did I get? Did I eat a bad steak?" I knew the open rate was going to be astronomically high, and it was. We had 2,000 orders within the first 24 hours. We actually had to shut off orders because we're a month, maybe longer out on production and being able to fulfill these orders based on how many were coming in. So we created a problem that we had to fix ourselves and be honest with customers and go, "Hey, we didn't think this was going to be this successful, but we'll let you know as soon as it's back in stock, and your order is going to ship as absolutely fast as possible." But that's a long way to answer the question, which is, how do you get people to try the product for the first time? You've got to get their attention. That could be done with shelf talkers. That could be done with shelf violators. You could do it through digital marketing and kind of wow factor marketing. Liquid Death is kicking ass in the space. They're selling $4 bottles of, or $4 cans of water. I don't know what their margin is on a can of water, but it's got to be really good when you're selling it for $4 so they can invest that into unbelievably creative, talented people that push out this badass marketing, and it's fun, and I've listened to them kind of speak on the topic a little bit. And it's like, if your marketing and advertising isn't something that somebody's willing to share with somebody else, it needs to be good enough that somebody would consider watching it if they had to pay for a subscription to watch it. That's the approach that they take. So, which is crazy. We're not to that level. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever be at that level. But that's what you've got to do. You've got to do whatever you can to get people's attention. Thankfully for us, we launched with a cocktail sauce that people love sharing with other people. So if I can get one person to buy that bottle for the first time, they're probably taking it to a holiday party, cookout, whatever. So it's a natural try vehicle to go back to challenge number one, which is get people to try the product, hear the story. We've got that kind of built into our products because of the way the majority of them are consumed. So that's been a huge benefit to us. It hurts from the standpoint that nobody's consuming our products. They buy a bottle and they consume it, in a day. Certainly, we hope they're not doing that on the spirit side. Somebody buys a bottle of St. Elmo seasoning, that might last somebody 6 months, and that's okay. But it's a more shareable product that way, which helps us get faster customers. So even though we don't have the turns of like a yogurt brand or, some snack brand, it's okay because we have a lot more customers that kind of know who we are. And our breadth is going to be better than our depth within, customers' purchasing decisions.
Yeah. Last question for you, Bryn. Any brands or just say general trends across CPG in general that kind of caught your eye or ones you gotten particularly excited about lately at all?
I don't know. I love seeing other brands win. Like I said, I think what Liquid Death is doing, I think is cool. Um, Cycling cans is, I don't know, it's kind of a cool thing. I think their positioning is, everybody told them they were idiots, and here they are dominating at a super high level and maybe changing the planet a little bit in the process. So I think products that any new product, very often, not any new product, but very often new products that win are products that somebody had a problem themselves, or they identified a problem, sought out to fix it and make a difference and change that. Everybody said they were crazy. They figured out how to do it, and then they were exponentially and hugely successful. So whether that's healthy products, I mean, I'm here selling, whiskey and vodka and red meat with a lot of my products. Seafood's healthy for you, but I see a big trend into healthy foods. I mean, one of the best ways that people, or one of the ways we hear people talk about our seasoning very often, is they're putting it on vegetables and things that, they're trying to eat a little bit healthier, and it's a lower sodium product. So I think you've seen that with Dano's really pushing low sodium has been successful for them. I think it products that go lean into what newer customers want, because if your customers you're going after all customers that are 60 by the time you dominate that category, and it takes you 10 years to do that, you're starting to lose customers, unfortunately, right? So if you can go figure out what that next wave of customers want and develop products that they're going to enjoy, and you can be profitable and successful with them, you might have a customer for 30 or 40 or 60 years. So that is, I think, what I would be trying to position for are things that, newer customers are looking for. On the vodka side, that's one of the things that we're excited about, is we believe, and we've got the scientific data from our scientist friend to back it up, that this is the cleanest vodka that's ever been made. And he's got, he can share the graphs to prove that. So it is, as far as vodka goes, it's a little bit cleaner than maybe the vodka you're drinking now. So I think products that are maybe a little bit innovative, healthy, things like that, that's what I think you want to try to look for. So that's what I'm seeing. But I think it's companies that are having fun serving a need that somebody else has identified or they've identified, and having fun doing it. That's typically who's going to win.
I totally agree with that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Bryn, this has been great. Super insightful. What's the best place for people to follow along with you? And then I know there's a bunch of different brands on the Huse umbrella. What's the best way to follow along with the ones you maybe want to call out, let's say?
Yeah, just about the only social media I consume and interact and engage with is on LinkedIn. So that's where you're going to find me. So just search for me on there. And if anybody has a question or wants to dive deeper, I'm a nerd for all of this stuff. I love talking about it. So happy to engage there. Our brands, just, search Barkeep Vodka, search Rare Saint, find it there. We're fairly active on all our social media channels. But yeah, just the easiest thing is search, and it'll, wherever you want to consume that media, you can find a little bit about us and that story. And the majority of our products you can buy online. Barkeep Vodka and Rare Saint Whiskey, we don't have that online. Just the complexities of shipping alcohol is extremely weird and difficult. So we expect to at some point, but all of our other products, including Cherry Vanilla Bourbon and all of our retail products, you can buy and find from saintelmos.com. So
Perfect. Awesome, Bryn. This has been great. Appreciate the time. I think that's the
yeah, thanks. It's fun. I love talking about this stuff. It's easy to sound like you've done some things smart when you only say the smart things you've done over a 17-year career, and you avoid the 10 times the amount of the mistakes that I've done over that period. So
sure, totally.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, likewise. Awesome. Thanks, Bryn.